Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Peters, I'll follow up a little bit and let me be a little more direct in my question to you, and I'll give you an opportunity to fully explain the answer here. Recent reports have identified at least 8 Chinese smuggling networks that have each trafficked over $100 million worth of U.S.-made AI chips into sanctioned Chinese military and research entities. This poses a serious and escalating national security threat. I believe this is happening in part because BIS, the Bureau of Industry Security, lacks the enforcement tools and resources necessary to keep up with the scale and sophistication of this activity. That's why we've introduced the Stop Stealing Our Chips Act with Senator Warner, bipartisan piece of legislation. The intent here is to establish a whistleblower incentive program within BIS aimed at increasing actionable intelligence on illegal exports. If confirmed, drawing on your experience as a federal prosecutor, what additional tools do you believe Congress can provide to strengthen BIS's ability to enforce U.S. export controls? And can you commit to working with Senator Warner and myself on this legislation?
Senator Rounds, thank you for your question. With respect to the issue of resources, as I'm sure you're aware, I'm not yet in the building, and so I don't yet have a clear understanding of exactly what resources we need. I am, however, aware of the publicly available information related to President Trump's proposed budget, which proposes a significant increase for resources to BIS targeted primarily towards enforcement. If in fact that budget proposal became the appropriation and we were to be blessed with those resources, it would be part of my charge to immediately set about determining how those resources could be best allocated to meet the national security threats that you've just identified.
Yeah, you'll work with Senator Warner and myself.
I'd be happy to work with you on that, Senator.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you in just a minute, sir. Let me just swing back over for just a minute to Mr. Jovanovich. Sir, as a nominee to be the chair and CEO of the Exim Bank, I want to ask about countering China's aggressive export financing. Earlier this year, Senators Cortez Masto and I introduced the Strengthening Exports Against China Act, a bipartisan measure that would allow Exim to exclude financing tied to China competing technologies from its 2% default cap, thereby boosting support for American exporters in AI, semiconductors, and related sectors. Given China's state-backed subsidies and export credit agencies, some of which you've already referred to, these export credit agencies that heavily support their exporters, what can XM do today, and what new authorities and flexibility does it need from Congress to level the playing field and make certain that we can effectively counter CCP subsidies? And if confirmed, will you commit to working with Senator Cortez Masto, her office, and mine on this legislation?
Senator Rounds, thank you for the question, and thank you for your continued support of the Export-Import Bank and also supporting all of the flexibility and the modern tools that we need to take on this grave challenge. To put this problem in perspective, sir, the Chinese have spent $3 trillion with a T since the beginning of COVID to further ensure that nations and companies around the world are deeply reliant on their supply chains. And so this will, I can assure you, if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, be a focal point of the front office of the Export-Import Bank. And our hope would be to draw in all the tools, including the China and Transformational Exports Program, of which you've been a big supporter. We don't need to match them dollar for dollar, Senator. We need to do two things and two things very well. Number one, we need to catalyze the great financial markets that we have here to ensure that private capital can flow into these very important industries and opportunities. And two, we really need to unlock the ingenuity of the American worker and American companies and put them first. And if I'm fortunate enough with your support, I'd be honored to work with you and the entire committee.
Thank you. Mr. Peters, just a thought, and I wanted, it was kind of left up in the air, and I know that you were trying to differentiate a little bit for the ranking member on the committee. The concern, you were being asked for a yes or a no answer, but I want to give you, just in the time I've got left, the opportunity to maybe respond a little bit more clearly with regard to the concern that you would have with AI chips that would go to other countries and how you would approach the issue of making sure that they don't end up in the hands of CCP.
So thank you again, Senator, for the opportunity to follow up on this. As I noted, transshipment and diversion of these sensitive technologies, whether it be to an entity on what's known as our entities list, or whether it be something that is controlled as a dual use item on the CCL. These are the exact subjects of our export control regulations and the Export Control Act the Export Control Reform Act of 2018. My charge, should I be confirmed to this role, would be to vigorously enforce those regulations made criminal under that law. If in fact a criminal prosecution can't be achieved, we have other civil and administrative remedies available to us through the export administration regulations, and I would look to vigorously enforce those.
You absolutely understand how critical it is we keep these particular high-value chips out of the hands of the CCP.
I understand, Senator. I share your concern.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.